that's a risk if you are inside the timeline. If you're outside the timeline, it's quite easy to see what his name will be and give that same information to somebody else along the timeline. Matthew 1 verse 23 explains that this was fulfilled in perfect accordance to the prophecy. Behold, a virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. Now, God in the Bible has many names. He's known as Yahweh, he's known as Yeshua, Jesus, Emmanuel, each one identifying certain characteristics of that person. In the Bible, a name is a representation of the characteristics or the character of a certain individual. Like Jacob, that was changed to Israel after he wrestled with the angel and overcome. He became known as the overcomer. Micah, who also lived as a prophet 725 years before Christ, wrote in Micah 5 verse 2, But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me that is to be the ruler in Israel. This is very specific, even pinpointing which Bethlehem Jesus will be born in. This is fulfilled 700 odd years later. Matthew 2 verse 1, there's this description. Now Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Perfect fulfillment of prophecy. One more, let's try one more. Zechariah, 520 years approximately before the birth of Christ. 500 years before Christ, he said, O daughter of Zion, now listen to this. If this is not phenomenal, then I don't know what is. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is lowly, and is riding upon an ass, a donkey, right? Oh, but hold on, that's not enough. Upon the colt, the foal of an ass. So I'm going to tell you what BMW he's going to be in. It's not just going to be a green BMW, it's going to have a CD player, an MP3 player with leather seats. That's what Zechariah is doing here. He's able to even predict that the means of transport for Jesus is going to be not only an ass, but the colt, the foal of an ass. And guess what? Perfect fulfillment. Isn't that incredible? Matthew 21 verse 5. Tell ye the daughter of Zion, behold, thy king cometh unto thee, meek and sitting upon an ass, and the colt, the foal of an ass. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. The place of Jesus' birth was predicted. The manner of his birth was predicted. His betrayal was predicted. The manner of his death was predicted. And guess what? Every single one was fulfilled. You see, this is where God starts to put his foot on the accelerator and accelerate away from other gods, where he starts to prove himself to be the true God. Now, it's all good and well that we look into the Bible and we say, well, the Bible proves the Bible. But we have to look outside the Bible and take an objective perspective on this. Does the Bible stand when comparing it to history or science or archaeology, etc.? So we look into history and we say, does history confirm what the Bible says about Jesus Christ? Well, Tacitus, who was a Roman historian around 115 Anno Domini, he was speaking about Nero's persecution. Nero was an emperor who persecuted the Christians in a terrible way. And he was speaking about those persecutions of the Christians in about AD 46 years after the birth of Christ. This historian wrote, Christus, from whom their name is derived, the Christians, who was executed at the hands of the procurator Pontius Pilate in the reign of Tiberius. History, pure secular history, proving that the Bible is accurate. Another one, a guy by the name of Suetonius, who was a Roman historian of the same period, he speaks about a guy by the name of Chrestus. Since the Jews were continually making disturbances at the instigation of Chrestus, Claudius expelled them from Rome. So again, this is the command when Jesus says, go back into the lost house of Israel. History determines and specifically acknowledges that this was the case. The people were going back in, and then even Claudius had to kick them out of Rome. Now, for some people, that's not enough. And it certainly wasn't enough for me. So what? Maybe that historian had his finger in the pie as well. How do we know that this is actually true? One of the questions which is often raised is Pontius Pilate. You can prove Jesus, you can prove everything, but Pontius Pilate never existed. This is a claim especially put together by atheists. And the Lord had this one covered as well, because in 1961 they uncovered this block of stone. And on it was an inscription which says, Tiberius Pontius, Prefect of Judea. Written in stone was the name of the prefect of Judea. This discovery proved beyond any doubt to shut up the critics about the biblical accuracy and the historic accuracy of the whole events surrounding Jesus Christ. One time it wiped out all the discontent, or maybe not the discontent, but it certainly wiped out any preconceived ideas of trying to prove that Jesus wasn't God. There it was, written in stone, not by the biblical scholars, but by history. Let's go over to the second solution, time prophecy. Now, I specifically focus in on time prophecy because there's a big difference between prophecy and time prophecy. Prophecy is a vast subject in itself, but it's the ability to stand outside the timeline and be able to say, well, over there, so-and-so is going to happen, so I'm going to give so-and-so that information over here so that they can predict it. But when you go to time prophecy, the Lord changes gears and says, boom, let's go to the next gear. Prove that I am God. Not only does he predict ahead of time that certain things are going to take place, but now he tells us when they're going to take place. Daniel 8, verse 13 and 14. A question is raised while Daniel is in vision. He says, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? This is the question that is raised in Daniel's heart. Interesting thing to notice is that when you're reading the King James Version Bible, there's certain words in italic. Those words were not in the original translation. So this would read, how long the vision, the daily. Meaning, when they've added the words in to help it make sense for us, it now reads, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily, and what happened daily was the sacrifice and the transgression of desolation. So this is the question raised. And then in verse 14 it says, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So what? I hear people tell me, so what? 2,300 days. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that the Lord has given us a period of 2,300 days. Bomb! Out of the timeline from the start to finish, 2,300 days, something special will happen in that period of time. We don't know when it starts, we don't know when it ends. We just know that there is a period. Now, the question is, in verse 17, he then says, but understand to me, O Son of Man, that for at the time of the end shall be the vision. So don't worry too much about understanding this at the moment, but just know that right at the end of time, where I believe we are at the moment, this prophecy of the 2,300 days is going to come into full, flourishing fulfillment at the end of time. So Daniel 9:24 says a wonderful thing. It says, take that 2,300 days and do something with it. 9:24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end to sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Wow! Let's stop for a second. 2,300 days has been given to the prophet. Out of that is a period of 70 weeks, right? And that 70 weeks has to do with two things, thy people and thy holy city. It then says to finish transgression, make an end to sin, and make reconciliation for iniquity. Now, according to Christianity today, the only person that could have done that would be Jesus Christ. So this 70-week prophecy has somehow to do with Jesus Christ. Well, let's look at it. I just want to stop for a second and bring to mind an experience that I had when I was watching television a while ago. I was watching one of the Christian channels, and on this channel was Pastor Benny Hinn. And there he had an interview with some of his pastors on the Isle of Patmos. We'll be going into Benny Hinn in a later lecture. But he had his pastors around him, and he asked, they were busy reading through the revelation of Jesus Christ on the Isle of Patmos, which is where John wrote the revelation of Jesus Christ. He penned it down. And that he was reading, and he wrote about how the dragon, with the tail of the dragon sweeping 1/3 of the stars